Spread the word. Use your microphones.
Thanks, Brad.
Sure.
Sorry. And great, thank you. We reconvened and we are back.
Beautiful. Can I make a motion to amend the agenda? Nicole seconds.
Oh, second.
Okay. Let's see here. May I have the following motion? Resolved that the Board of Education, having heard an appeal from student discipline determination made by Principal Bob Clark, designated as appeal number 1, and following due deliberations hereby affirms the determination of the superintendent of schools.
So moved.
Caitlin,
Second.
Lisa, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 7-0. Okay. We have some guests here today. And up first, we will be having a presentation from BOCES 1.
Dr. Hauber and a longtime Fairport resident and former board member, Maureen Knupp. Come forward. You're rooting her on, huh?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You don't get to hang
Don't
out
give
on
Maureen don't give her the microphone. Well, she'll just. Exactly. I do think it's appropriate that we do have Dr. Howard here and our BOCES representation of the work that we do with BOCES, particularly when we talk about instructional programming, which is our draft tonight along with our revenue. So it's a great start to that conversation. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for that introduction. I'm delighted to be here with Maureen. As some of you may know, Maureen served on your Board of Education for 21 years and then transitioned and now currently serves as the Fairport representative on the Monroe 1 BOCES Board of Education. In 8 years, she's filled that seat. And we're pretty sure she's going to go 8 more years, right, Maureen?
At least. I don't think so. You have another plan. We'll see.
We'll see. We have been very good at convincing members to stay, so we'll see. So we're delighted to be here tonight. Our goal today is just to give an overview of BOCES as an organization and then your district's participation in some of our programs and services. We'd like to start out by thanking the Board of Education for your service to the community. This is especially special for me because I actually live in the Fairport community. So thank you both personally and professionally for your service. We'd also like to thank our partners at Fairport. Brett and the entire administrative team have long been very strong partners as we work on behalf of students in the region, and we're just so appreciative of that partnership. So this year is a milestone year for Monroe 1 BOCES, as earlier in the year in January we celebrated our 70th anniversary. So 70 years Monroe 1 has been working to support students across the region. Ironically, BOCES started out in a small space right on Baird Road right here in Fairport. And since then, the organization has grown to over 1,400 employees, and we serve over 2,000 students every day through our special education, CTE, and itinerant programs. The mission of the BOCES is to provide accessible, high-quality programs and services to our districts to meet the regional needs of students with a focus on efficiency and reduced costs, which we recognize is more important than ever as we navigate through this very challenging financial landscape. So we'd like to start out looking at Monroe 1 at a glance. Monroe 1 BOCES, as you may know, is one of 37 BOCES across the state that serves about 680 districts. We are a partner in education, and we look to share support services and expenses in many different categories. The highlights or the big buckets are supporting instruction across the region, developing specialized programming for students and supporting programming in districts for students. Also supporting technology services, including the IT infrastructure, cybersecurity, and data management. We have several itinerant staff that are specialists that we deploy out to our districts as well as to our private and parochial schools to make sure that students' needs are being met with those specialized services. And then, of course, business and purchasing. Our organization supports the process for all of our districts around cooperative bids, insurance coordination, cost sharing, and things things like that. In looking at Fairport's participation in our programs and services, you can see just a highlight here. On the front page, you can see participation in career and technical education. You have approximately 81 students that participate in career and technical programming at the Eastern Monroe Career Center, which is right here in Fairport at the Foreman Center on O'Connor Road. 17 additional students who participate in multi-act focus, which is also a career and technical education program that we offer. 99% of students that participated in EMCC programs, which is inclusive of Fairport students, graduated, and we are able to offer 135 work internship sites for students across the region. And then those programs supported Fairport students earning 134 college credits last year. If you flip the page over, you can see just some highlights of special education, itinerant, and regional programs and services participation. Fairport has about 66 students that participate in our special education programs. We support assistive technology, behavioral health, clinical therapies, deaf education and vision services, as well as regional programs and services in your district, including comprehensive teaching solutions, high school equivalency, regional summer school, of which Fairport has been a host before, translation services, and tutoring services. Technology services, we have many, many services available to our districts, 47 in total, and Fairport participates in 32 of those 47 programs. We're most excited about an upcoming partnership with Fairport. As you know, one of our highly successful programs, eStart, will be moving into the Minerva DeLand building at the start of next year. And we're just really excited about that space. We know that it's going to be just really awesome for our students to have a library and to have really accessible classrooms in a space that they can feel like they're in a high school. So we appreciate that and look forward to that partnership as well. Did I miss anything, Maureen? Oh, we missed one thing. Did you?
I did.
Yes. Do we want to talk about that?
Sure.
Okay.
So Brett, congratulations, happy anniversary. He told me it was his anniversary today. This is the March meeting 11 years ago when the board approved him to be our superintendent. So thank you, Brett, for continuing that. And the other thing I wanted to say comes from our student representatives who want, when we go on these tours, we're supposed to tell you that you should put more emphasis on career and technology education because it's a really good program and we don't put enough energy in it. And the kids want you to know that this is a really great program and more kids should get involved. So this didn't come from me, this came from the kids that are on our program. So thank you. Anything else I should
No,
think
I
about?
think that was
That should do
great.
it.
Thank you for your time tonight. Are there any questions?
I'll go along with that. I know Maureen and I are both active in the county legislative committee, so she keeps me in line there. But on that,
Hi, John.
on that vein, and CTE is obviously something we talk about with legislators a lot, but in terms of advocacy positions, when we're talking in Albany, what are some of your priorities? What are your needs in this that we as school board members can be advocating for there?
Number one priority is funding to increase our footprint to develop programming.
Right, because I think there's a cap, right? I mean, we look at how many students
Everything's
are.
got a cap.
Right,
Yes.
and I think there's probably even more students that would want to participate, but there's a limit in how many seats we get per program, I believe, right?
Yes. In post-COVID, there has been such an elevated interest in career and technical education, which is super. We've been asking for it forever. And now that that interest level is there, we need to be able to meet that interest level by being able to expand our programs. We currently are involved in a 3-year growth and development project. And so we're trying to develop partnerships with industry so that we can expand our footprint through space and industry, so we're not always looking to expand our buildings, and that has been very successful. We have a couple partnerships that are in the works right now. We have been able to develop some programs on campus. Some of you may know we opened up what we call our Monroe One Center, which is we moved our business offices out of the Foreman Center so we could make additional room for student programming. And then we hope to be able to do a relatively large capital project down the road to expand some of our trades programs. We have high wait lists in our buildings, our carpentry program, electrical trades, welding. So we really want to be able to expand those programs and seats to give opportunities for students who are currently on the wait list.
I have a question too. In the blue box, it says programs to explore. So the programs that currently no Fairport students are enrolled in. Are those programs that we've been enrolled in the past and just there isn't interest right now? Or is there something formally that the district has to do in order to?
Nothing
Go into
formal
that.
that they have to do. All programs are available to all students, sometimes just based on interest. Uh, uh, Enrollment might go up and down in those courses, so those just happen to be courses that nobody's enrolled in this year, but every course is available to every student.
That hit me too, especially because we had the students asking us about expanding physiology, and I
Yeah.
see the human performance and exercise
Yes.
science.
So that is one of our brand new courses this year that we
Even
started.
better.
Good
It's
planning.
like a pre-PT program, and it's amazing. It is. We renovated an entire space, and it's like walking into a PT space or what you would see on a college campus for students who are pursuing PT degrees. It's really pretty.
That's
cool.
really great. We've gotten feedback from students that they're looking for ways to take more coursework in that area. So that's great.
And you're all invited on a tour. You know, call the office and make the plans, but I mean, we haven't had a BOCES tour from Fairport in quite a few years. 2
Yeah, because remember I messed up. I wanted to go to the restaurant,
Rain.
and then they were like, no, you can't eat with the
It's all your
kids. And I was
fault.
like, no.
It's all her fault.
Yes. We love doing tours, so anytime the group would like to come back and tour, just let us know. We're happy to host.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay, just checking the time. I believe we do have someone signed up for public comment, but I am not seeing them. Okay. We will move on. So that leads us to our school student advisor report.
Okay, so this month, me and Mallory, we visited Joanna Perrin, and it's our second to last school visit of the year, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, we got to meet, well, not meet, but we got to talk to Mr. Grow again, and then students from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade at JP. So one thing that really stood out was they were very optimistic about the school start time change. And I feel like we've seen definitely varying opinions on this, but at least at JP they all seemed pretty excited for it, and they mostly talked about getting more sleep and having a better sleep schedule because of it, which we know is one of the driving factors for this change. So that was exciting to hear from them. They told us how much they enjoyed the middle school just compared to elementary school with more freedoms, having sports, and the 6th graders were looking forward to sports next year. And the different offerings for clubs. We also talked to them about having Mr. Monticelli next year, and they seemed very excited just to meet someone new. And we talked to the 8th graders about having Mr. Grow for 7 years in a row. But they all love him, so they were excited about that. But yeah, they were very excited to have Mr. Monticelli as well, and just whatever new ideas he brings to the school. And then we talked to them a little bit about the renovations, and even though they probably won't really reap the benefits of this, they were very excited about the AC at the school and everything. And yeah, and they mentioned a little bit, they had gone to the high school once before for a visit, and they mentioned that it was a little overwhelming, but they also know that they have more opportunities, especially over the summer for the 8th graders going to the high school next year. They said that the first visit was a little overwhelming, but they know they have more opportunities to get to know the school. And so, again, they seemed optimistic about that, which was good.
Yeah, Mr. Grow took us on a tour of the school, which was really cool because Nora and I both went to Martha Brown. So
Yeah.
I've only been to the gym and the cafeteria for sports study hall and stuff, but it was really cool. And my favorite part was the tech room because it could expand to like the all three, and I had no idea. So that was really cool to see.
And their library is like
Yeah.
beautiful. We see
Yeah.
the library at every school we visit, and JP is like number one on our list now
Yeah.
for library.
So the few things that they mentioned that could potentially be improved were a few people were concerned with music lessons and how sometimes they'll have lessons during lunch and they want to get a 40-minute lesson since lessons are only once a week, but with lunch they feel like they're constantly choosing between like either having 20 minutes to eat or like getting like a good time to practice and like actually work on what they want to, which I thought was interesting. But we did like reassure them that like schedules change every year, so we could. It's not every week, obviously, but it is interesting to hear that their feedback on that. And then the last thing was that backpacks have to go in lockers, and so almost every other period or whatever they need, they have to stop at their lockers, and they were struggling with getting to class on time and like going to the bathroom or getting water or whatever else they needed to do. And some of the eighth graders complained that their foreign language was in like the sixth grade hallway, so it's like on the opposite side, which I was like, you'll get used to it. But definitely like without the backpacks, it is a change from like staying in the same classroom all the time in fifth grade in elementary school. So that is something interesting, but we
Yeah.
did reassure them that
And we
it gets
told them
better.
like, I'm sure Mr. Monticelli has like ideas to help with that because he's from Minerva where they have like the worst layout ever. And so they were excited for him to come. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so like that was something they were really excited to have Mr. Monticelli for, just to like hear his advice on that. So yeah, that was kind of like
Yeah.
interesting. Just tell them. And then what's happening in our district? Well, we had our presentation from NASA Hunch at our last meeting, so I just had a little, like some notes from that. So we had got a presentation from some of the members of NASA Hunch like 2 weeks ago on March 5th. And it's just a special program for more like hands-on work. And we also learned, I didn't know this, but it's a club and a class at the high school, and they can get credit for it. And I'm pretty sure the only class you can take at the high school multiple times and get continuous credit for it. But they have a partnership with NASA and other engineers, and they're currently waiting to hear back. Well, I'm not sure if they're still waiting, but to hear back if they made it to finals. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
But finals is in Houston, April 29th, and they would present to the NASA flight surgeons, Human Research Performance Group, and other ISS scientists and engineers. And their like demonstration of all of their projects and everything was just really cool to see. Like I've been at the high school, but I never really knew that much about it, so that was interesting. Also huge this week, we have Brotherhood Sisterhood this week. So today was the forum in 512, so I was in this room all day long. And yesterday we had family talk, and that was wonderful. Like Mr. Onibeni came back and he gave a great speech. And Bridget and it was great.
No,
Yeah, that
yeah,
was
it was
today.
fun.
It was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Onibeni was on our panel today too, and we had retirees from the high school, and we had a ton of alumni come back. And it wasn't just like alumni who lived in Fairport. We had people drive like multiple hours to come and talk on the panel and stuff today. So it was really great. And even just seeing, last year was our first year doing it, and just seeing how it grew like from last year to this year was really exciting. But then later this week we have outreach on Thursday, and then Friday we have Unplugged, which I have been in the process of planning with Mr. Kuhn and Bridget and everyone, and it's going to be very exciting this year. We have normally we do the same show for Unplugged and we repeat it twice for the different floors. We had so many people sign up that we're just doing 2 completely different shows to include everyone that wanted to perform, so that'll be really exciting. Then we also have spring drama season, so the high school had Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief, Minerva DeLand had The Descendants, and Martha Brown's Once Upon a Mattress. We also had, including NASA Hunch, but our like math, science, engineering sort of clubs have been busy in competitions, so like math counts and our first Lego teams at the middle school. And I've heard they've done really well at all of their competitions, all of those sort of science clubs. This month is also Music in Our Schools month, and so we had the middle school musicians performed they had chorus, band, and orchestra ensembles, and they had junior high all county with students across the county. Also on yesterday, we had the college fair field trip for the juniors who they went to talk to college reps. And then on Friday last week was the 100 Days Senior Breakfast, even though I think it's actually someday this week is the real 100 days till graduation. But it's versus this week, so things have to shift around. Yeah, 100-ish days. But yeah, that was great. I was there on Friday. And then also, just to highlight some of our sports teams, our boys and girls bowling teams competed at the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, the NIFSFA Championships. And then our boys swim team also competed there. And then a couple members of the boys varsity wrestling team went to quarterfinals. And finally, this last weekend, our varsity indoor track and field teams competed at the New Balance Nationals in Boston. So yeah.
So for what's coming up, we have the district art show that starts April 9th through the 23rd at the Parrington Square Mall, which is very exciting. Spark Night, April 13th at the high school with around 40 different presenters. Joanna Perrin's A Comedy of Horrors on March 27th and 28th. Varsity boys basketball is off to states this weekend after their big win on Friday in Buffalo. And they play Corning, I think.
Yeah, in Binghamton this weekend.
Yeah, on Friday, and then we'll see how that goes. And they'll have final Saturday. And then spring sports seasons have just begun in the past week, and we look forward to hopefully another successful season. And finally, the senior show for the high school was announced, and they're doing Rogues Gallery, and that'll be on May 8th and 9th. Yes? No, looking ahead. But we're basically there. It's like summer.
Thank you. Okay, which leads me to my update. And thanks to our amazing students, I don't have too much to report on. So I have a lot of the same things, and they did a much better job than I probably would have. So March has been a really busy month already. I can't believe it's only the 17th, but I think we talked a little bit about the fact that we kicked off the 30th annual Brotherhood Sisterhood Week. I can't believe it's been that long. And the theme is Count on Care, and then the 30 years. So I know that there's bags over there with the nifty signs on it, and people have T-shirts and all sorts of great things. So as everyone mentioned, there have been a lot of assemblies and celebrations that will continue out the week. I think one of the nice things this year at the high school, Minerva came to be part of it as well. And that's kind of another step in terms of bringing, both schools together. So I heard great things about it. Unfortunately, I wasn't there, but I think having everybody in one place was really impactful. I know everyone is also looking forward to their buddy days that is coming up too. I was going to mention just how outstanding all of our sport competitions have been. Basketball, as you mentioned, is going on to states. And I was lucky enough to go see the Percy Jackson musical, which was also outstanding. It's great to see so many of our students performing. And I know the middle schools also had a lot of great musicals. Couple of things that also happened. We had students in Odyssey of the Mind 2 weekends ago at their regional tournament. There were 6 teams that went, and all 6 will be going on to New York State Finals, which I don't think has ever happened before, so that's exciting. You've mentioned the Lego, which is great, the Lego League. And also we had our robotics happening this past weekend at our IT. So, and I'm pretty sure they did well. I'm not sure what the next step is for them because it's kind of confusing to me, but I heard they did well.
They have another regional tournament in a few weeks. Yeah.
That's perfect. That's what I thought. So thank you to all of our coaches, directors, projecting the people doing things for all of our kids and supporting all of their achievements. I would say look on social media, different emails going out, YouTube for a lot of the things that are happening this week for Brotherhood Sisterhood Week. And thank you. There was one thing I did want to mention. Would anyone be willing to talk just a little bit about the visit to Brooks Hill? I wasn't there, but I know that visiting the schools is always a highlight. So I wondered if folks that were there mind just talking about it a little bit.
Sure.
Yep, so a few of us visited Brooks Hill. It's an opportunity for the board to kind of walk the school, talk to the administrators, understand all the great things going on there. The highlight is always getting to meet with some of the students and getting kind of the full, candid feedback on everything great about the school. So we learned a lot about the lunchroom, about the great clubs going on, about some sports, what they're doing in gym class, favorite things to eat at lunchtime, least favorite. And we got to tour the school and meet with the great staff and educators over there. So it's a good visit, always time well spent. Anything else to add?
I just love any chance we get to visit, and especially we saw one of our UPK that's in district. A lot of our UPK classrooms are outside. This is still an outside partner, but it's in one of our buildings. So how they've integrated those littlest learners with their school setting, always great.
I always appreciate Brooks Hill. They're very good at implementing district initiatives and reporting back on that. And they have, I'm a little biased, but a really great relationship with their PTA, as do most of all our elementary schools. And it's just always neat to see the power that comes from that partnership.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And just a reminder, we are talking about the instructional budget tonight. I think we've had, you mentioned the robotics, they came, or not robotics, the NASA Hunch came. We've been talking about musicians, and we've been talking about electives and classes that are available for all our students, and just, academic achievement we're seeing across the board. So just a reminder, that's why we do what we do.
Yeah, the visits, I hope that the board, I know you enjoy engaging and touring, but the themes of the MTSS programs that we developed, the coherent literacy curriculum, the data-informed instruction, of course, what we're doing with Spark, and that's always a favorite. So that's a credit to the board, the commitment to MTSS. So thank you. Am I continuing?
You are.
Well, I guess, March Madness, Fairport style. And I really just love this community for what occurs here in this month. Brotherhood Sisterhood is unique. And Mallory was speaking to it. Nora, you were amazing up there today. I appreciated you getting up here and sharing some of your thoughts. The week has expanded over the past 11 years, and it's become more of this K-12 spirit week, celebrating the ideas of care. It started out as CART, right?
CART?
Yeah. With civility, awareness, respect, and tolerance, right? And tolerance has evolved to embrace, and the C has evolved to compassionate. So ideas that transcend eras, and I think Nora said that people came and they traveled long distances, and these were original inceptors of Brotherhood Sister Week.
Can I jump on that?
Yeah. Of course.
I hadn't known the history. I didn't grow up in Fairport. And so I think yesterday at the family talk, I was really, it was enlightening to learn about, it kind of developed out of sad situations and kind of bullying and intolerance and stuff. And then, tapping in teachers and students to create this moment of Fairport family that we all hear that. How many times a day do you hear Fairport family? So this really developed, and I thought that was just so powerful.
So I think that's right. It's not perfect. We are not perfect, and I had an opportunity to speak to that today in the forum, that Fairport is imperfect, but the panel members were saying we're definitely not imperfect, but it's all in being intentional and in the doing and striving for these ideas that if you look around the world today, we need compassion, we need awareness, we need to respect, and we need to embrace each other in so many different ways. And again, yeah.
Care is a choice we make,
Well,
as
well,
Rich shared
you
quite a
know
few
what,
times.
and I am putting forth next year to the committee,
To have that be the,
care is a verb,
ah,
right? And it gets people to think it through. That's going to be my contribution. But interestingly enough, there's so many people that have their hands in it, from Bob's team, Leah Greenman, who's been, at the forefront of staff supporting students. But Helena Dixon and Bridget Fish are two students who've elevated it and really have embraced it and added that student voice in ways that haven't happened. Now, as luck would have it, Helena was out. She's traveling, right? And of course, what's happening in travel? She can't get back, right? So then she had Paige Muiwison come to bat for her, and it was phenomenal. And I want to just read two powerful excerpts. And this, when I was just reading this, and I think it captures the essence of what is so incredibly important in Fairport. This is Paige speaking on behalf of Helena. The original purpose of Brotherhood Sisterhood was to identify the truth that we are all more alike than different. We put these walls of separation in words and ideologies. We will miss meaningful connection, right? Here's our students, who have been through our schools, talking about connections and putting ideologies to the side. And that's what we talk about when we talk about instructional budget. When we talk about programming, it's giving students opportunities like this, and these are investments. I hope that each and everyone, you take this week to reflect on the actions of you and those around you. Most of all, make new friends, talk to someone who you never think to talk to, and smile at someone in the hallway. Simple, intentional acts. Then Bridget goes on to say, if you look around, every single person has a different story, right? That's powerful. Like our high schoolers, our teenagers are caring about other people's stories, and everyone has a different path. We challenge you to embrace everyone's path, but most importantly, find your own. Fairport is unique due to the endless opportunities that we provide. Again, that's our instructional programming, right? We know that there's great value in extracurriculars and in how students will come to school to find that important connection. In whether it's robotics, whether it's NASA Hunch, or whether it's chess club. Helena and I challenge you to find something that brings you joy and defy the standards set forth every single day. And our kids recognize that. So I definitely thought I wanted to make a majority of my report about Brotherhood Sisterhood Week. A very important part of our community is we are going to be joining a bus patrol camera system. We've seen it throughout the county, and I'm going to have Jeremy Nardone, our Assistant Superintendent for Business and Operations, talk a little bit about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm excited to talk about the stop arm camera system, also known as the bus patrol camera system. It's said to be a stop arm camera system, but don't let that fool you. The cameras are not on the stop arms. The reason they call it that is because they start recording when somebody passes a bus and their reds are on. So their red lights are flashing, the stoplight is out. That usually means kids are entering the bus or kids are crossing, and then that's when a ticket could be issued. So pretty much how the system works is each bus typically has 6 cameras. I say typically because there's buses that are different sizes, and they might not need a full 6 cameras to get a full look of the bus. But most buses have 6 cameras. They are recording 100% of the time when the bus is operating. So not just when the reds are on, it's always running. It only takes pictures if the reds are out and a vehicle is seen to pass the school bus. What happens then is it sends that clip to Bus Patrol. Bus Patrol will review that clip to determine if it's a ticketable offense. If they determine that it is a ticketable offense, they send it to the Monroe County Sheriff's Office for a secondary review. So there's a lot of checks and balances, and sometimes during this review process, they find that it was not a violation, no ticket or warning needs to be issued. If Monroe County Sheriff's Office determines that a ticket should be issued, they issue the ticket. So when this starts, they start with what's called a warning period. And actually, my team has a meeting tomorrow around 8:30 with Bus Patrol to initiate this warning period and get the communication out. When the warning period begins, it's a 30-day window typically, and if a vehicle passes a bus with their reds on, they will not get a ticket, but they'll get issued a warning letter. And it'll pretty much take a picture of their vehicle, said this is the time and the place that you passed the bus. Please don't do it again. Once the warning period ends, you will get a ticket. Once the warning period ends, which we will know about, we'll communicate that out well, then the violation period begins, or it's known as a system goes live. At that time, if a vehicle passes a bus with their reds on, and it goes through the proper channels, bus patrol, Monroe County Sheriff's Office, those vehicles will be ticketed right directly to their house. The first violation is $250, then it goes up $25 per violation, but not to exceed $300. So, does that mean if they only pass a Fairport bus, are they going to get ticketed? This is where it gets very interesting. If a school district is subscribing to this program, they have the ability, or any school who has these cameras has the ability to ticket in the confines of that school district. So perfect example, when I was at Hilton, they implemented these cameras on their buses. If a Hilton bus, once this program goes live, if a Hilton bus is driving through Fairport, our school district, and their reds are on and a vehicle passes their bus, they will be ticketed from Monroe County Sheriff's Office through the bus patrol system. Likewise, if our bus is in Hilton, same thing. Now, if a bus that does not have this camera system, obviously there will be no ticket. So it's kind of one of those things that all the school districts try to do to better it and to protect the students. There are a number of school districts that are part of this. I don't have the exact number, I apologize, but that's what I'm working on now to find out exactly how many schools in Monroe County are part of this system.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
So I remember a few years ago we had looked into this, and the drivers were going to have to push a button if somebody passed to catch that clip of the video. And they hadn't wanted to do that.
That
Is that
better not be the case, and
Okay.
that's going to be on my list of questions
Okay.
for tomorrow.
And then where do the funds go?
Yeah, so I'm still working on that. I would assume a portion of it goes to bus patrol as well, but it's going to be a combination, my guess, of Monroe County Sheriff's Office and the bus patrol system because they also supply the cameras. But I'm going to find all that out in our meeting tomorrow before this goes live. Before this meeting was scheduled, we didn't know where they were at with the process. We found out that all our buses are now equipped, but they are not live with the program. I was able to talk to some people over the weekend. But yeah, that is on my list of questions to ask for tomorrow to find out a little bit more information.
But we understand that it's,
Any of it come
that it
back?
funds, no,
No.
that's yes, no. And I think that's
I
what's gonna
wish.
pay for the program is,
Right.
they say that it's self-funded through the process. Now, a couple of years ago, and I'm glad because it's evolved, because it was more manual. It seems like the technology's improves to where it's more of a natural thing that occurs. So I'm glad we weren't on the early adopters of that because I think it, you see some of the videos that are out there. I'm really pleased that we're starting to embrace this though, because we want to make sure that we're doing all we can to always enforce safety.
As the superintendent said, 100% no funds go to us. I did ask some good questions. They will replace the cameras when they go bad. Cameras usually have a 5 to 7 year life cycle. They will come out, replace them. There's no cost to the district for any of this. Also, their recordings are good for 30 days, similar to cameras in the school. And then they'll either put clippings to the cloud if they want to keep them for a certain amount of time, or that information will be overwritten after 30 days, roughly.
And
Any other
again,
questions
zero
on that?
cost.
Zero cost.
Zero cost.
Zero cost.
Is the footage ever used for anything else? Like if Monroe County Sheriff said there was something else happening safety-wise in the area of your bus, can we use that footage?
That's a question we could find out.
Just-
It's an excellent question that I don't have the answer to right now. But I'm sure if there was a further violation or something that would help with an investigation, I mean, Jeremy, you could see he's doing his diligence right there. Yeah, good question.
Just piggybacking on what Jeremy said, this was discussed you shared a lot of this at the district-wide safety, and John Kidd spoke a lot to educating the bus drivers. This is not we're going to throw our stop sign out to, catch somebody going by. And also there will be parameters put in place that when they are, parked at a school, that there are times when a car can pass a school bus when it's there in, the parking lot. So a lot of just thinking of all the different scenarios. So
That's a great point. I believe they call it geofencing.
I was trying, I'm like, it starts with a G, and
Yep.
for some reason I'm
I
thinking
was gonna say
ghost.
geotech, but
Yes,
geofencing.
it's
So
geofencing.
we actually give them areas in our school where we don't want them to ticket it if the reds
Oh,
are out. So a
okay.
perfect example is going to be bus loops.
Yeah.
You have some weird bus loops, especially at Brooks Hill, where you're going to have cars that are passing a bus, but they're kind of like on the side, so they don't really have to stop. And we don't want a ticket in that area. So it'll be a learning curve, but we're going to send all that. That's why we're glad there's 2 steps of reviews in process before any ticket would be issued.
Geofencing, I like that.
It's a good word.
Use that one. Thank you, and look forward to learning more and answering some of these questions as we move along. It is budget season, and advocacy comes in many forms. I know the board, I'm sure, will be talking about advocacy. Jeremy and I have been involved in a collaboration with like-sized districts, not just in Monroe County, but in Ontario County, speaking about how are we managing this season's budget. Again, part of this collaboration is, talking about how we're getting through the budget season, giving the facts of our district. And I think that's important because we're, as a unit, as a community, as a county, as an area, we're all doing our best to advocate. So I think that's an important point of interest. And we'll look forward to talking about the budget and how we are building a budget that will give our students the same amazing experiences that they have in 26, 27. I'll be ceding my time during the instructional budget and during consolidation corner and action discussion with no action with the consolidation corner. So until then, I hope we all continue to enjoy the blessings and gifts of March.
Okay. Board member committee reports. Anyone? They did. Want to throw it to anybody else first?
I didn't have any.
Anything that way? No, no meeting.
Audit and finance. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we talked about that down at the minute.
Yeah, there's the summary of the Audit and Finance Committee meeting in the public content. So obviously budget is a big focus at this time of year. So we talked about some of the features of the budget, some of the things that we're dealing with. Also had a discussion about starting to think about a framework for evaluating options for revenue streams at Minerva DeLand, which will be a big part of our discussion heading into next year. So.
Okay. So yeah, I did go to our legislative meeting this month with Monroe County. Since we had our legislative breakfast in February, we used this time to talk about, kind of review what people felt about the one that we just had, so we could plan for next year as well. I think some of the feedback that we received from our representatives was that they really enjoyed having the student voice there. Specifically having students at the table, having conversations and being part of those conversations. So we did talk about that. We talked just about, advocacy within talking to your individual representatives. I think as the superintendent mentioned, everybody is on a similar page in terms of looking at foundation aid, healthcare increases. So talking about, giving data and information to Monroe County School Board. So when they are meeting with folks perhaps in Albany, they have those stories and that actual information, which I know we've been doing and will continue to do. A little bit about mental health and UPK, what kind of data we can give so that when they're possibly talking to the governor's folks, there's specific information. So, yep.
And the only other thing is, since our last meeting, the Assembly and Senate put out the one-house budget, calling for a minimum of 2% foundation aid increase instead of the one proposed by the governor, which would not solve all our problems, but an extra percent would be very nice.
Yeah.
So I know we're advocating for that, and I know Brett and all of you, and the work you guys are doing with superintendents and advocating across that. I think that was the big thing in the one-house budget. Everything else kind of in line with the governor.
Did the one house cover UPK? I apologize. I did read it. And
Yeah, I think
can't remember.
it matched the governor.
Okay.
It did match.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Similar enough to the governor's proposal that
But it
didn't
didn't
jump
stick
out
out.
at me. Jeremy, I don't remember. You notice any difference?
I think it
there,
was the
but-
same.
I didn't notice any difference.
It was similar.
Similar enough for
Yeah.
for our purposes. So.
And school lunches still in the one-house budget too.
What was that?
School meals, we're still included all that.
Yep. And when we were meeting at some point this week, yes, we absolutely want that that additional 1% since we only have the one as of now, we think. But it's also not as much as I think people think, right?
Which we'll be talking about
Yeah,
when we get to the
exactly.
revenue pieces and.
Yep.
address that.
So we
I
will
think we're
continue.
used to hearing about 2% as a tax cap, so it's not half of that. Like, it's 1% of the foundation aid. I think that's one thing that
Yep.
gets confused.
Absolutely. Okay. I think that's all that happened so far this month. I know there's meetings later.
That's a lot.
Rich,
Yeah.
did we report on district operations the last meeting? I forget. It was on healthcare.
Yeah, I don't remember actually. Yeah, now that we split up the meetings, but you want to talk a little bit about it?
Just a little bit. I think it's information that is on all of our minds in terms of healthcare costs, and I think all schools, it's a complexity that we are all grappling with as school districts, and I think that really came across that. We know that there's a lot of factors that are influencing increasing healthcare costs, and I don't think it's just applying to schools. It's all businesses, and we could talk for days about the whys and what we would like to see happen. But I think my biggest takeaway coming away from the meeting is what can we do as districts to best inform our members and best provide clear information about the different healthcare plans to give them the best options, and also for us to make sure that we're being financially savvy. And then second, I think there was at one point in the meeting, it was like, what can we do as boards? And, is there a place, we're always talking about advocacy, but is there a place for us as districts to come together and advocate? Really would be more at the federal level than the state level, which I was not aware of. But again, it's something on our minds of how do we provide the best healthcare for our teachers and staff in our district, and how do we make sure that we educate them, about the plans that we have available.
Okay. So we have our treasurer and investment update. Mr. Nardone.
Yes, so we have the treasurer's report for the month of January 2026. Beginning cash balance of 104.7 million, receipts totaling 6.2 million. The big one there is we received our STAR payment on time, and we also received our BOCES surplus refund from the prior year. We have expenses of 11.6 million, mainly your basic payroll, BOCES, accounts payable, and health insurance, for an ending cash balance there of 99.2 million. And you can see down below how that is invested. Again, still going strong with the T-bills, treasury bills. Those are still over 3.5% for short-term investments, which is great. We do have some money in sweeps and SED cars as well. So great job by Chris, still keeping our money invested. Any questions?
I think so. Okay. So our presentation for tonight.
Yep, moment everybody's been
Yep.
talking about here.
Absolutely. The 2026-27 instructional budget draft. Draft.
The video, of course, wouldn't be much without a video, right? So it is appropriate that, talking so much about our programming, we had our representatives from BOCES here talking about a very important program that our students access from an instructional standpoint. Throughout the year, the board gets MTSS State of the Curriculum reports, board visits schools to see our curriculum in action. So there's so many things to celebrate and talk about when it comes to our Fairport schools. We're going to be talking about our budget goals really briefly. We've been talking about them since October. Again, that makes all the difference in the world. We take it for granted because we've been doing it at a consistent pace and basis for the past several years, but it helps us focus. Talk a little bit about the instructional budget and what goes into it. The total budget, it's a draft. It's, again, when we say draft, it's going to evolve. And particularly in this budget season, when we talk about a $3.7 million shortfall as of today, we'll be looking in the next several weeks, engaging in strategies, what we'll be talking about to definitely lower that, so we can put forth a responsible budget to our community and most importantly to our students and staff. Jeremy will be talking about revenue projections. reserve funds and some long-range planning, and I'm sure there'll be some good questions along the way. I know the board is interested in engaging in. Again, here are the goals. It focuses on student learning, MTSS, data-informed instruction, making sure that students have access to all the programming that we've been talking about, from Brotherhood Sisterhood Week to robotics, to NASA Hunch, to electives and AP courses, and we're really proud to offer that a budget. We're on a path to offering a budget that still continues to do that, strengthening our district universal UPK programming, and that strengthening comes in the form of collaboration, professional development, building partnerships, and then we talk about modern, environmentally sustainable, safe facilities, investing in our facilities, making sure that we're maintaining them and meeting students' expectations. Nora was talking about students are excited about some capital improvement projects, which is going to make learning environments more accessible, friendly, and engaging. We know that makes a difference. If you go to that Fairport High School or in some of these new classrooms that we built, students really rally around that. So I'm proud that that's still a priority, even when it's in the budget. And then again, this idea of fiscal sustainability will be a theme. We need to be responsive and responsible to our community as a whole. What is the instructional budget?
Even some of our counterparts in Monroe County, they don't offer 3 languages anymore. The fact that we offer French, Spanish, and German, and that we give kids historically their first choice is really exciting for those 6th graders. The high school students, they get a lot of choices, but for our middle school students, this is their very first time saying what class they want to take and basing it on their interests, their siblings, what they took, or maybe sometimes their heritage even. It's fun for us in 7th grade because they are so excited to be in our class because they chose to be there. All of our language courses in the middle school are offered over 2 years. We really can take a deeper dive into the language by spreading it out over the 7th and the 8th grade year so that they can get their 1 credit towards graduation. Language classes don't look like they did a long time ago. We can all go back in time and remember when we were just conjugating verbs on charts and memorizing lists of vocabulary. World language classes has changed immensely. We try to give them as much language as we can in very comprehensible ways so that they can feel successful. And by that success lowers that affective filter. They are less nervous because they're feeling more confident and they're doing things with the language.
What does that look like?
Denim, right? Denim, like jeans. It comes from the denim. For some kids, it does come very naturally, and for other kids, it really is difficult. And the fact that our district supports our students in getting their very first high school credits by offering them an opportunity to get help and remediation is really special. This is where they kind of get their passion ignited in the language. And, for all kids, it's different. For some kids, it is the seal of biliteracy. And when they do that grad walk and they have, and they run up to me and they say, I got my seal of biliteracy, like, it's not only the pride that I have that I was at the beginning, but the pride, I'm so excited for the pride they have in themselves that they took themselves that far. And the fact that we get to kind of be at the ground level of that journey for them is really awesome. As the language is the vehicle, but where the vehicle is going is learning about cultures and what that means. It could be music, it could be clothing, it could be food, it could be anything. And it's fueling that curiosity. And I think that's what we hope they take away with, no matter how far they go with the language.
This project is the students' first chance to apply the skills that they've learned. Each student was given a tool, and they had to design a pegboard tool holder for that specific tool. So they 3D model it in SolidWorks and then 3D print it and test it. This project in particular, it's more of like a legacy. So if they build something that works really well, we'll take it over to the high school and we'll use pegboards to organize tools in that new space, and they'll get to see their design actually being used. What makes DDP such an important class is because it's a foundational course. Mainly the CAD skills that you learn in this class will allow you to use more advanced manufacturing techniques in the upper level electives. The addition of like 3D printing and laser cutting and automated manufacturing processes. So it gives the students a really good chance to apply their CAD skills and actually make something as opposed to just seeing it on the screen. They get to make something tangible. A lot of students, they sign up for tech classes because that's why they like coming to school. It's their favorite part of the day. So whenever you have a kid that is here having fun and learning, that's always a plus. In the K-5 Spark classes, showing kids that they can change the world around them to make something useful. Middle school, it's a lot about kind of taking it to the next level, having a little bit more fun and using a little bit more critical thinking skills. The skills that they're building in these high school classes are really, it gives students a leg up when they move on past high school.
The mission of Fairport's music program is to enrich the lives of every student in our community, from kindergarten and eventually pre-K all the way up through graduation, and to have them connect what they are doing in other disciplines and just making it relevant in the music room where they can create and explore and perform. Here in Fairport especially, we have a strong culture of music. We've got a history that celebrates the musician, celebrates independent as well as individual, as well as group ensembles. And so much of what we're doing here in the music room, even at those early primary levels, is preparing kids to participate in larger communities, in small communities, to work together, to problem solve, to create.
Ready, here you go. Luge, skeleton, luge, curling. Back to the last A section, ready, set, and here we go.
They're cooperating, they're collaborating, they're figuring out what they like and what they don't like. They're recognizing how they are in a group, or how they are when we're playing games that are competitive. They can recognize in themselves and grow through those and build upon those strengths and weaknesses as they move forward. And kids can go as far as they want in this district, to really great lengths individually or in an ensemble at the higher levels and even at this younger level. But just getting those skills in general music at the elementary level gives them all sorts of opportunities to grow, not only as humans, but as musicians and as people. And I think that's a really special thing.
Amazing, bring it home, second graders. Better together. Oh yeah, Maya. We're better together when we celebrate our way. We live, learn, and grow individually. We're better together for ourselves and our community. Nicely done. Give yourself a pat on the back. Turn to a neighbor and say it was.
The pressure of that transition, doing it perfectly, much better than I could. Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay and Lauren, for putting together that video that really speaks to the heart. I mean, the depth and breadth of What our students are learning in K-12 programming has been exceptional. We appreciate the work of our educators to bring it to fruition, to our leaders who take the time to help organize and implement. And we're really proud of the work that we do here. And here are a list of the instructional priorities that the board has made throughout several years, and we anticipate that we will continue to maintain that excellence as we go into 26, 27. Students will have experiences that will enrich them beyond all the great things that we talk about throughout the year with activities and clubs. There's meaningful academics occurring in our Fairport schools. We continually do enrollment projections, and I think that's very important always, not just during budget season, but throughout the year, particularly when we are looking at consolidation. It's important that we see similar numbers, and you could see just by looking at this chart that numbers are staying pretty steady, right? And in fact, there's still a little decline, but we're averaging out. You can see that our 395 students coming into K that's projected, we're graduating 415. Through time, those numbers will increase based upon our survivor ratios that occur throughout time. So we're in a good place. We're consistent with consolidation. So that's good. As we talked about earlier, and I mentioned that we're going to continue to dig into it, this is a real different budget season. There's a different story that's occurring relative to how public schools are funding. Again, not just Fairport, but throughout the state. And there's lots of advocacy about how do we generate more revenue, especially when expenditures continually increase. We talked about healthcare, the cost of healthcare, the cost of our contracts, which we are obligated and happy to make sure that we're competitive and that we make Fairport a welcoming place, an engaging place for all of our educators to give them opportunities to grow and be fulfilled. And again, Jeremy, the healthcare costs alone this year were approximately
Over a $3 million increase as of right now.
right. And again, not a Fairport problem. And I know that Rich and Jan talked a little bit about that they've learned that through district operations. We're going to continue to develop that along with our other commitments. It puts us right behind the 8 ball as we start the year, especially when revenue sources continue to go flat on a foundation aid that's approximately 1% is
1% is about 326,000.
Yeah. So again, challenges. And because of these challenges, if you look at the chart here, you can see that our class size projections, we've had to increase them. From 2025 to 26, particularly in K, you'll see us going from 18 to 20, right? But you'll see contractual limits, well within contractual limits. I'm not going to read the entire chart to you, but you can see, that where the contract states we have to be, we are well below that as we move through the budget season. But we also know that part of Fairport, a special part of Fairport, is to make sure that we try to keep it personal and meaningful in the classroom. So we're always trying to balance that. And if you look at 712, K6, class K6 sections, you'll see there's a -1 delta, right? So again, there's declining enrollment. We have to be responsive to that. And you'll be seeing how that's going to be impacting the budget season as we move through. In secondary 712, you see class sizes and targets that we're trying to get is between 23 and 30 for grades 7 and 8, and 9 and 12 it's 24 and 30. You'll see those ranges achieved. And again, there will be times when classes are right at that 28, 29, 30, particularly in those higher end AP classes or accelerated classes where there's less sections and opportunities. Those are sometimes a little bit higher, and they level out too throughout the year as well as students move in and out of the classroom sections. But we feel very comfortable as we move towards consolidation that they'll be experiencing similar class sizes that they have in previous years. Again, there are sometimes lower class sizes if there's capstone art classes or technology classes where health and safety is a priority and there's limitations in space. We talked about the instructional budget, the different components of the instructional budget. And pretty much at this point, it's a rollover budget, right? Jeremy, kudos to him and his team. Really appreciate you owning the budget, and again, we talked about sometimes you'll see increases because there's just been shifts in salaries, but you also see contractual obligations in here, the cost of benefits and healthcare in here. You'll see supplies and materials and equipment increases, natural increases as we move through the budget here. Special education, there's a 5.22% increase. That's our BOCES and our private parochial commitments. There's staff salaries in there. Above that is 2,100. That's where our general education staff, most of our teaching staff is in there, and the administration is at 3.11%. I went up, I apologize. E&L programming, we have to be responsive to the growing E&L population that is in our community. We're proud to serve families that have come to Fairport, and we've had to actually spread it throughout our schools just so we can be effective in our programming, and I appreciate the board's support. And I know our students definitely benefit from it too. Summer school, you'll see it at this point a 9.66% increase as we present this draft budget. The instruction component, again, when you have school library, AV, and computer assisted programming, those are decrease of -2%. Student services, that's where our mental health teams reside, and that's where many of our co-curriculars reside in there as well. We're really proud of the things that we do in that budget line as well. Again, only a 3%. The instructional budget total is a 3.78% increase. And then on the expenditure side, we talked a little bit about, again, significant decrease, because again, just a shift in code, right? Again, the Board of Education, you are volunteers, and there's professional development and traveling costs that are in this budget line, but there are no salaries in there. We did shift the salary to my office. We see a 6.87% increase. That's our board clerk, and my secretary's salary is also in there. Business administration, reallocated salaries there, and that, again, 7.66%. Again, reallocation of salaries as Jeremy manages his budget and makes it his. You'll see that there are adjustments there. Personnel, you have HR and communications in there, 3.9% increase. Central services, that's our buildings and grounds and our maintenance, 2.54%. And special ed items, that's our BOCES administration fees. As we talked about today, Dr. Halber was here with Maureen Knupp, and that's the cost of doing business with BOCES, and you can see that our students find value, and there's more for them to do as we were asking and looking to take advantage of all the great services in BOCES. The general support is 2.91%. No pun intended, Jeremy's gonna drive us home for transportation.
All right, thank you so much. So transportation, this is the cost of doing business for all our buses. So normal contractual increases there. In addition, we are seeing an uptick in, just as everybody is with their homes, with parts and inventory, supplies, equipment going up. So we want to be ready for that and make sure that our buses can operate. In addition, with what's going on in the world, we do have a little bit more money thrown into fuel as well. Moving forward for the purchase of the bus, so every year Fairport tries to buy between 9 and 11 buses for our bus replacement plan to make sure that our buses are safe for our students. So this year we are projecting to buy 9 buses, that's 7 large buses and 2 smaller buses. With that, with those 9 purchases, we are only planning on trading in 8. Again, with the consolidation, you saw this, we began it last year. I believe we didn't trade in, it was either 4 or 5. We are holding another one back this year because we want to make sure that we're ready to go with whatever our kids and staff's needs are for the 26-27 school year. So right now, after using about $185,000 from the bus purchase reserve, we're looking at just over $1.6 million in bus purchases, which is almost dollar for dollar what we had last year as well. I think it was within $200. Community service, this is where we'll have some expenses for lifeguards and whatnot, a couple salaries in there, nothing much, and no increase really from year to year. Employee benefits, this is the big one. So as board president mentioned, when I said a $3 million increase in health insurance, remember, it's always adjusting, right? So when I put these numbers together, it's changed a little bit since then. But let's start right up the top. We got ERS. Our rate did increase from 16.5 to 17.6%. So there is a little bit of an increase there, along with just your normal increases in your contractual salaries. TRS, you'll actually see a decrease there. So the rate dropped from 9.59 down to an estimated 8.24. It doesn't get solidified and finalized until a little bit later in the year, but we do have some good information that that's what the rate will be. So if you think about it, right now our instructional salaries are about 55 million in total. If you think about 1% of that, it's about 550,000. That's about roughly what it's decreasing there. Social Security is a percentage of salaries, so you just take all your salaries times FICA and Med, which is 7.65%. And then we have workers' comp. We are part of a consortium, so that number is actually given to us. It was given to me at my last workers' comp meeting, so that will be our expense dollar for the 26-27 school year. We do have some expenses contractual there for life insurance, some unemployment and some disability, which is also contractual. No increase there. Actually, our rates did decrease with life insurance with the new life insurance company that we went to, so pretty excited there. Health and dental, so you'll see here in the presentation is a $4 million increase. There is some other things included in that number. So not only is that the increase in the plan from one year to another, which is more or less at that $3 million, but it's also contractual HSA, HRA payments that the district makes and flex payments as well. And then we have other benefits, which is some flex payments also in there, our Employees Assistance Program, which is very beneficial for our employees, tuition reimbursements, some retirement incentives as well, and that is staying flat at $458,000. Total benefits is up almost 9% at about $49.6 million as of right now. Our debt service and interfund transfer, so this is our short-term financing. So this is the 2023 project that is, we're a temporary financing. So because the project isn't completed, you don't want to go out to bond because you don't know what the final cost of the project will be. So you don't want to go borrow, I'm going to make up a number, 30 million, have expenses come in at 29, you just borrowed $1 million that you don't need. So you use temporary financing to pay your contractors, to pay your architects and your construction managers until the work is finalized, and then you go to permanent financing, which is going to be on the next slide. Again, although you're going to see a big increase in this, it is offset by an increase in building aid as well on the revenue side that we'll get to in a couple slides. Transfer to special aid fund. This is for summer placements and also local, the local cost for our 4408, which is our summer programs, and our 4201, which is our Rochester School for the Deaf. So there is a local portion. They say it's 20%. It's right around there. It's a formula that's given to us every year. But there is a local cost to those programs. We are anticipating an increase of $25,000 there just based on previous usage. So that's something that we analyze in my office. Transfer to debt service, this will be those bonds that we were talking about, the long-term financing, which is now our 2019 project as a part of that. So it's amazing. We call it the 2019 because that's when we voted on it, but until it gets permanent financing, you're usually 6-7 years out, and that's just how projects go. So you'll see a big increase there. Again, you're going to see a 74% dollar for dollar increase on the building aid side. And then our transfer to capital for our capital outlay $100,000 project that we talked about that will be actually completed in the 27-28 school year because we're a year behind, and we are looking at doing flooring at JA. So our total expenditures, just looking at it from every different function code that's up there, you'll see a budget to budget increase of 6%. Again, as Mr. Provenzano said, this is still in beta. We are still working on this. We are analyzing it. It will change 20 times by the end of the week, and that's just how budgets work for every school district. So we're keeping an eye on it, but again, a large portion of that budget to budget increase is associated with that debt. So, and again, you're going to see the building aid offset that as well. Looking at the revenue, so again, revenue, there's two major portions of our revenue. Number one being our property taxes / our pilots, and number two being our state aid. That's how the majority of districts receive that money. We are more heavily reliant on property taxes due to our wealth ratio. Also, there's some sales tax, some other revenues such as interest earnings. Now we got our BOCES lease for the eStart program. Thank you very much for our partners there. Some miscellaneous, some admissions for some musicals and stuff that I was able to attend. That was fantastic, by the way. And then also we do have reliance on reserves and fund balance to further prevent a larger increase on the taxpayers. So looking at our revenue, again, the tax levy was implemented in the 2012 year. That was the first year that we had the tax levy increase. That is known as the 2% cap. Before that, districts were able to go out at whatever they deemed to be fit, and they only needed a 50% plus one vote. Now with the tax cap, if you want to override whatever that formula turns out to be, you need a 60% supermajority. Again, people have that misconception that it's 2%. So whenever they see an increase of above 2%, they're automatically thinking you are overriding the tax cap. That is not true. There's a lot of different factors that go into that tax cap calculation. The 2% is actually the rate of inflation, or 2%, whatever is less. That's one component out of a, I think it's 15-step calculation that we have to do and submit to the state by March 1st. Looking at our budget, tax levy and tax rate increases over the past years, these do not always go up the same amount. School budget, you'll see a 5-year increase of 4.12. Usually that one you're going to see a little bit more volatility, and that is because of debt and building aid and capital project work that districts do. You'll see a 5-year average tax levy increase at about 2.59%, if my eyes don't deceive me there, and a tax rate increase of 2.15%. Again, I will just point out, don't forget that Parrington is looking to reassess all homes and do a reassessment in the upcoming school year. So our tax rate is actually set to drop, I'm estimating, about 43%, which sounds great. But again, that is up to the town itself based on the equalization rate that the state sets.
Chairman, can you give that number again?
Yeah, I'm sorry?
You said the tax rate would
43%?
drop.
Yeah, I'm estimating 43%. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. We got preliminary numbers from the assessor probably 3 weeks ago, but they don't actually become finalized until July 1st. And there's going to be a challenge period that people can challenge their new assessments. You probably received them in the mail by now, maybe. They were supposed to come out. You'll get them in the next couple of weeks, and then people who disagree with those assessments based on sales from, I believe it was July of 2025, can fight their assessment or challenge their assessment, and then it becomes more finalized July 1. Looking at our tax cap formula, this is that complex formula that I was talking about, 15-step program here. One of the big increases that we'll see from the prior year is our tax-based growth factor. That is actual changes in already assessed values, and think about those as additions to your home, making nice renovations to your house. That's what that number represents. Last year was only 1.0046, so we almost saw a double in that, which is a multiplier, and that's why our tax levy or tax cap is a little bit higher this year. Running through it, you look at your pilots in the current year compared to the subsequent year, and then you look at your debt in the current year compared to the subsequent year. There's also exclusions if the retirements go up more than 2%. As I noted, TRS is going down, and ERS is going from 16.5 to 17.6. It's under that 2%, so there's no exclusion for that. And then there's also an exclusion for torts or judgments against the school districts that's in excess of a certain percentage of our tax levy. We do not have that as well. So when it all concludes, our tax cap number for the 26-27 school year results in a tax cap of 3.3%, or about $2.9 million. Budgeting for state aid. So this is what the governor was putting in their proposal that the superintendent talked about earlier. 1% is about $327,000. We are hoping that that goes up another 1%, but there is no guarantee. Hopefully, if it's an on-time budget, we'll find out by April 1st, but I am not anticipating that being the case. So I just hope we get that number before we finalize our budget here on April 21st. Also, one of the big things that they were talking about is the UPK going up from $5,200 per pupil. Right now we receive $5,400. $5,200 is our foundation aid per pupil, to $10,000. That would be a big help for Fairport. But again, we probably won't know that until the budget is finalized, which will probably be at or about the time we're finalizing the budget ourselves. Looking at our revenue, so foundation aid sitting there at a 1% increase. Transportation, BOCES, and building aid, again, that's that increase in building aid that is offsetted by the debt. In addition, we did have some large one-time purchases from BOCES, so that's part of the strategy too, to kind of get at this shortfall. that we're recognizing that revenue because we bought a couple one-time large ticket items at the end of the 24-25 school year. We missed that May deadline, so we're not receiving the revenue this year. We're actually going to receive the revenue next year. So just trying to take all that into consideration to know what your revenues are truly going to be. Excess cost aids, that's your private and public excess cost, which is based on your special education enrollment. Public is for students who attend BOCES. Private is for students who attend private and parochial schools similar to Mary Cariola School of the Holy Childhood. And then you have your aidable materials, urban suburban aid, textbook aid, tuition aid, and that is up about 4.6% as well. So state aid in total is up about 4.5% year over year. Expense-driven aid, so this is your BOCES, transportation, those public and private excess cost aids, and building aid, and all those percentages are up there. As I stated, building aid kind of fluctuates year over year. Right now we're anticipating 73.7. That'll get as low as 72 and as high as 75, maybe 76, depending on the year. And these are the best estimates that we have going forward. History of the foundation aid, you can see there back a few years ago, we did receive that large increase from $27 to $31 million. And then you'll see now that we were fully funded, that increase was about 2%. It stayed flat that 1 year, went up 2% last year, and we're anticipating 1% this year.
I think that's important to recognize that change, it was only 2 years ago, right? And that was very helpful as we moved through the pandemic, right? On top of the federal dollars, on top of interest revenue that we were earning. So we were able to maintain and really continue our programming, right? And now you see how the foundation aid is flat, and that's how we talk about the advocacy of getting 2%, an extra $365,000. We're really scratching for that because it means a lot as health insurance, as the cost of living, supplies increase, so we can maintain what the community expects. And those moves are gone, right? We don't anticipate that level of increase. That's a difference maker. On top of the federal funds, those are difference makers. On top of unexpected interest earnings, that was a difference maker, which we have to be accountable to as we build a budget, right? So I am impressing that upon the board and the community as we move through this budget season, that we have to take account of how we are projecting the future moving forward. And that's why we talk about class size adjustments, right?
Absolutely. Continuing through, this is our total revenue budget. So we saw the total expense. Total revenue, you can see the 3.3% increase in property taxes there, the 4.5% increase in state aid. The pilots, one of our pilots, Evergreen East, is actually, the agreement is not based on assessed value, it's based on revenue. So as you see, a lot of students that moved into our district this year that went to Evergreen East, that is increasing their revenue source, which is increasing the pilot that the school district receives.
So even though we didn't get it in the foundation aid, we got it here, which was a nice benefit.
Yes, yep, absolutely. You'll see a little bit of an increase there in sales tax. Again, that goes up just based on the purchases in Monroe County for our area, and then an other revenue increase as well, which in there will also be the BOCES lease for $365,000. So looking at the fund balance and reserve usage. So you can see right at the top, we appropriate $4.9 million, almost $5 million from our fund balance. So what that means is we took $5 million from the prior year and rolled it over to balance the budget for the future year. There's also a transfer from debt service, which factors into our tax cap formula of $325,000 that we're going to take from debt service to pay for debt. And then we are appropriating $20,000 from the tax certiorari reserve, $536,000 from the unemployment reserve, 4.24 from the retirement contribution reserve. Those are actually two separate reserves. So that breakout is roughly $3 million from our teachers' retirement reserve and roughly 1.24 from our employees' retirement reserve. You can appropriate as much as your yearly bill is. Our yearly bill in 24-25 for TRS was about $5 million, so we're appropriating $3 million. We're within our limits. And our ERS bill was lower. It was at 2.1, so we're appropriating about 1.24 from that. And that's how I'm gonna break that up in the next slide just to make it a little easier. I know we did have that question, and that's the breakout of that retirement contribution reserve. We do appropriate $300,000 from our employee benefit accrued liability reserve to pay for any retirement incentives that are offered or sick day buyouts at the end of the year. And then also our workers' comp reserve based on our workers' comp expense, which was about $620,000. So we're appropriating $600,000 from there in case we needed to pay for that bill. And the total is $11,447,000. The only decrease from the prior year is the decrease in the transfer from debt service.
Jeremy, looking at the past few years of fund balance reserves used to balance the budget, how much did we use that much from all the reserves last
No.
year? That's okay.
Nope, so we haven't used any of it. So why you appropriate from your reserves and fund balance is if a lot of times it's for special education placements that you just don't know are gonna happen. So if you have special education students move into your district and you don't have them built into the budget for it, you have to come back to the board and amend the budget. So the taxpayers, when they approve a budget, they approve a maximum spending plan. That's all they approve. And that's a certain dollar amount. If you don't build in for those unanticipated expenditures, a boiler going, a generator just went at Northside Dudley, we got to replace that, then you can't do those without going back to the board and asking for an amendment to the budget.
So this is how much was budgeted to be used, not how much was actually used.
Absolutely.
So, but again, just to redundant on purpose, and I appreciate that question, and it goes back to what I think Mary Caitlin was saying a few years back. It's important that we have consistent foundation aid so we could build budgets, right? And over time we weren't getting that, but eventually we got it. But that big bump again helped us not dip into our reserves, right? The pandemic, when we were budgeting for full years because we had no understanding on what was going to happen, that helped us get through some of those years. The federal funds was another revenue source. So again, those revenues are no longer accessible, right? And so that's why we keep on saying, okay, well, it looks like we're getting close to using those reserves based upon what we're seeing and projecting with the revenues.
Yeah, and I understand. I think just the title of the slide makes it look scarier because it says used. So then if you look at it and you're tabulating your head, like that's a lot of money we've been in the hole. But yeah, thank you for clarifying that because it is an important.
Thank you for that feedback. And again, we look at everything as percentages. So right now our use of fund balance and reserves and balance of budget as of today is 6.4%. Auditors like to see that between the 4 and the 6% mark, so we are not outside of the realm of what they like to see, and most districts do that to balance their budget. And think about it as percentages, 4 to 6%, right? It's a large number. When you see $11 million, it's a large number, but just know our budget's $170 million. So when you think about it as a percentage, think about it in your own home. If you're a salary, dual income salary at $100,000, it's $6,000 in the bank that you're planning on using. So you got to look at everything from a percentage standpoint. So this is actually looking at our current deficit. So again, that total budget number came from the expense side, $175.2 million. Our total revenues, that is not including our fund balance and reserves. And then you add in the transfer from debt service, the assigned fund balance and reserves, gives you a total revenue budget of 171.5, and that is what causes a $3.7 million deficit. You can see that last row there shows 6.46% of our budget was used for appropriating reserves and fund balance. As of this year, it's 6.09, but we're not balanced. So again, we're right in that target that the auditors like to see, and they have that conversation with me every August when they do our books.
And is the reason we wouldn't apply more than the 11 million in reserves to close that $3.7 million gap? Is that because of that 4 to 6% range? And if we do more, now we're getting up towards 7%, it becomes less
Definitely
fiscally
a big part of it, not the full reason, but definitely a big part of it. That's something that I look at, because if we're outside those ranges, it just looks off to an auditor. But absolutely. So we'll have a bunch of different strategies that we'll look to implement to reduce that $3.7 million deficit. This is just a snapshot of our revenue summary. It's not going to show everything because there's a couple items that are so small, like that transfer to debt service, $325,000. That's just not shown when you're looking at a $171 million revenue budget as of right now. But this really puts in perspective. You can see the big two pieces there are our property taxes and our state aid. That's going to be like that at every school district you see. Potential budget gap management strategies. So this is something that we always are doing our staffing analysis and looking at our staffing, as Mr. Provenzano said earlier, with the class sizes and the sections at our elementary level always being analyzed and looked at, our different electives, our programs, in addition our revenue budget. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier when we were talking about our BOCES aid is we had a large purchase in June of 25 that's actually going to be carried forward and given aid in 26, 27. So it's looking at all those strategies to make sure, are we realizing all the revenue that we're going to anticipate receiving before we make these decisions? In addition, fund balance and reserves, looking at that 4 to 6%, looking at what the colleagues are going to do across the state, especially in the own region. So that's something that business officials are talking heavily about right now. How are you going to close your deficit? It's everywhere. It's what we talk about. It's the number one topic on our agendas when we meet on a monthly basis. And we'll be looking at what they do to close their gaps and increase their fund
And
balance.
we've talked about rainy day funds, right? And that's why we have reserves. And I would also add to that, there needs to be an exit strategy, right? If you're going to use reserves, you then need to have an alternative plan that speaks to how are you going to not rely on continuing to pull out. Now, that's where, again, we talk about staffing analysis. That's why we talk about, looking at our class sizes so we can remain sustainable.
Absolutely. And we talked about a tax cap override there would require a 60% supermajority if the board decided to go that route as well. It's always an option. Reserve funds. So again, these reserve funds are usually set aside for a specific purpose. A lot of our reserve funds are what's known as restricted. So our ERS, our Employees Retirement System Reserve, can only be used to fund Employees Retirement System expenses. And so on and so forth with the Teachers Retirement Reserve, the Repair Reserve, the Capital Reserve can only be used on funding capital projects. So we have a bunch of different reserves that are for a bunch of different purposes that you can appropriate to use in the budget as long as you have expenses for that in that budget cycle. And looking at our different reserves, these are all balances as of June of 2025. There's no ins and outs throughout the year other than interest earnings or expenses, like if we're using part of our bus reserve, like we talked about using 185,000. There'll be a movement in usually September, October when we're looking to purchase those buses. But usually these reserves either get funded or utilized at the end of the year. So you can see 21.7 million in our capital reserve. Please note 15 million of that is already allotted for the K-8 project or 2025 project that was voted on in September of 25. 15 million will be moved out of that reserve at the end of the school year. 1.4 million in a capital technology reserve to use on future technology purchases. About 800,000 there between the two bus reserves. That one at the bottom there will be closed out. We'll fully expense that on our proposition. And then looking ahead at some repair reserves, our EBLAR reserve, which is again to pay out any sick and vacation buyouts at the end of the year if the district sees fit. So there was a change in the GASB standards. That's our government accounting standards boards that we follow. That was allowed us to add to that reserve for the prior year. Our tax certiorari reserves are for tax claims. With the reassessment coming up, it's good to have some money in there in case large organizations challenge their assessment. You can pull from the reserve. We also have a liability reserve in case something goes wrong with the district, and an insurance reserve as well for any insurance needs. We also have that ERS, the Employees Retirement Reserve, the Teachers Retirement Reserve. Again, those seem like big numbers, but if you look at our normal bill for Employees Retirement System expense, it's about 4 years. If you look at our Teachers Retirement Reserve, it's not even 2 years. Our expense last year was $5 million. It goes up based on the trends, the salaries, all that takes effect to it. So it seems like a lot of money, but it's not even enough to cover 1 year of salaries for the TRS reserve.
So Jeremy,
Yep.
I'm grateful for that explanation because you look at these numbers and you see there's $14 million in reserve and we have a $3 million deficit.
Yeah.
The rainy day fund, it's pouring outside.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking to that, like along with the exit strategy that Brett, you were saying, that these kind of have to be funded at a certain level for, can you talk about what you were just saying, I guess a little more, why we have to keep these at a certain fund level rather than using them for the rainy day?
Yeah, absolutely. So the board actually sets a funding level that we talk about in our reserve plan that was approved, I want to say in October. I've only gone through the one cycle. But this actually gets updated after year end. The board will set the approval for that, the maximum funding levels. For ERS, we usually shoot for 5 to 6 times our yearly expense. And for TRS, you're actually subject by law. You cannot go over 10% of prior year salaries. So that is pretty much fully funded. If you think about it, salaries increase about 3 to 4% every year. So you might be able to add 3 to 4% to that reserve year in and year out, but you can't do any more because it's subject to that 10%. So these reserves they're either dictated by the board or they're dictated by the state and how much you can fund them.
So just because I'm like the old guy in the room, it was intentionally when the TRS was established, I believe, how many years ago?
I want to say 5.
5 years ago, the board intentionally made investments in this reserve for the purposes that we were talking about, rainy day funds. If we needed to give it back, it's for that purpose.
So, but if we're applying, I think it was like 4.2 million across the two retirement contribution reserves, right?
Yep.
The amount in the reserves is what, 3 times that, right? So these won't be around forever if we kept doing that.
That's the problem. When you're deficit spending, think about spending from your savings account at home. If you utilize your savings account to just have your normal monthly bills coming out of that, eventually you're going to dry up. So you don't want to have those reoccurring costs through your reserves. You want to have those, and I hear the superintendent talk about this all the time, those one-time expenditures. One-time expenditures that is for an emergency base, that's when you dip into the reserves to use those.
That's why I talked about an exit strategy that gets us through 1-2 years. And if there's something that changes the revenue flow, that's helpful.
Right.
And then we have the unemployment reserve and the workers' comp. Again, our workers' comp expense is coming in at about $620,000, so there's not even 4 years of that in the reserve. Our voter propositions, so there will be 2 propositions on the ballot outside of the normal budget vote. The first proposition will be to allow us to spend roughly $185,000 from our bus purchase reserve. The $88,000 from the reserve that we want to close out, and then 90 some odd thousand from the other reserve that's got about 727,000 in there to help purchase those 7 buses. So that's about just under the cost of 1 bus there. And then proposition 2 is authorization to create a capital reserve. Budget is a best case estimate based on where you stand at that date. If you have money at the end of the year, you need one of those reserves to actually put the money into, and that's a reserve that's actually given back to the taxpayers in form of reinvestment through the district and the actual facilities. This is actually the voter proposition language that you will see on the ballot. Again, it's 9 buses, 7 large buses, 2 small buses, and using that $185,000 from the 2 reserves. And here is the language for the hopeful new 2026 Capital Reserve Fund.
And just to be clear, we are not putting $25 million in this fund. This is just voter approval to create the fund that we will.
Absolutely. So we talked about those maximum fundings for our TRS reserve, teachers retirement, 10% of prior year salaries. This will give us authorization to put up to $25 million away over the course of the next umpteenth amount of years.
This is aligned to our strategic plan that speaks about facilities planning and making sure that we do things in a cost-effective, responsible way to our community as a whole. So as we evaluate our strategic plan, we'll continue to talk about that reserve and how we use it. You can see on this calendar, it's an important calendar because it talks about the process of the budget. It's just not a one-time event. As you can see, we are at March 17th, and we are talking about the instructional budget and first draft of 26-27 school year budget. And I imagine and guarantee we'll be here April 7th talking about what we are doing to move through this budget season. And then you'll see that there's a budget review and adoption. I'll make a recommendation to the board based upon what we talked about on April 7th and April 21st here, 512 at Fairport High School. And again, May 5th, there's a public hearing, and May 19th, the school budget vote, along with 3 open seats for the Board of Education. And that's at 200 parent from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. In between there's going to be lots of opportunities to learn more about where we are in the budget process. Any questions?
You're not surprised, I kept a list. Okay. Just a few, 2 for Jeremy and then 1 for like Brett / the group. But with the 2% versus the inflation rate, whichever one is less, just out of curiosity, what was the inflation rate according to the state this year when they did that?
That is a
comparison.
great question. I want to say it was 2.98, but I will find out for sure, and I will
Okay.
get back to you. It wasn't as high over 2% as I would have thought, but I
Okay.
will definitely get that number for
I'm
you.
glad you didn't ask me that question.
I'm always okay with it. Let me get back to you. I was just thinking about that as you're going. Also, with the bus replacement cycle, I'm curious about the 10-year number. Like, is that something that we would feel comfortable changing to spread out the purchasing? Just as someone who keeps cars for a really long time in my house, have that thought process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a thought that we work on with our transportation director and our head mechanic. So that is something that we're always looking to do. It was recommended that we bought 10 this year, and we did back it down to 9 for that reason. But 10 years is the usual cycle that we like to see in the schools, but definitely on the table to look at that.
So when you extend it out, we've talked about this in the past, then you'd have to have a corresponding increase in your maintenance, right? And you try to purchase the buses at a strategic time that sort of, you can try to maximize the trade-in value, which you're not getting a lot of trade-in value.
You're not getting a lot of
right?
trade-in value, yeah.
So it's sort of like a cost benefit.
I guess I'd be curious, I mean, this is probably a little too in the weeds, just as far as just putting the ideas out there, but what those maintenance costs actually look like. Like when the bus is 9, 10 years old, are we seeing that, we're having to do a lot of that, or is
It's
it?
funny that Pete Marini's here. I bet you, he's sitting there shaking his head.
Yeah, okay.
Pete just retired, and again, he's the one who talked to us about, the longer you have them, the longer you have service, and the more service costs are associated with them, and that becomes expensive. Again, when you go to the mechanic today for your vehicle, you know what you come out feeling like sometimes. So you try to manage it, and there are times when we do say we're only going to do 9, not 10, and you look at what your fleet is rendering. So it is a careful analysis, and also we receive corresponding aid with our bus purchases. So we want to take advantage of that, and it is our, and this, like, we want to make sure that our transportation is as safe as possible. We want to make sure that the latest technology and safety standards are up to speed, and the newer buses always have that.
Okay, and then you won't be surprised, my last one's about the class size targets. Okay, so my understanding in the past, this is more of like a semantics question, was that we had sort of 3 numbers. We had the contractual limit of how many kids could be in a class, and then our target, like kind of the aspirational, and then the actual. So for a long time, we've had the actual was a lot lower than the target in some cases. So then we brought it up to be more similar, like especially in the lower grades, it would, I would see targets 18, but we have
It's not
16
an exact
or
science,
something.
and that's the thing, when you're looking at class sizes, we've gone between ranges and up to amounts and to targets, because you never really, you really try to hit that sweet spot.
Sure.
And
So my semantics question is, with this year, because of the way the budget is and our class sizes and all of that, we're feeling the need to increase those lower elementary grade class sizes, that actual number, a little bit. So I guess I was just curious why we changed it to say that that's the target number. Because in my mind, like, our target number is still what it always was. We just recognize our actual can't be there this year. But I guess I feel like it's a bigger discussion if we want to change what we're labeling the target, because that feels really like we've changed our aspirations.
The target is more aspirational, what we would love, versus the
Yeah.
realistic.
So in my mind, our aspirations have stayed the same. Our reality has changed, but I don't know that I'm quite ready to change our aspirational number yet. So I know that's semantics, but I feel like that affects the future budget process if we're changing that number.
So again, it does become a numbers game too, like when you're looking at lower sections, right? And then if you increase to try to get to that target, now you're way underneath it. Just like if you look at Brooks Hill, JA, right, they have smaller sections, and it just becomes a math game. So it's a tricky semantic conversation in Fairport, because we have had those aspirations and expectations, and some years we're able to achieve them, and some years it's more complicated because of enrollment trends, because of budgets.
Yeah, so I guess that's where I just feel like we're saying, well, our target was 18 to 20. Now we're doing, but the actuality is we have to do 20 to 22 this year. So let's change the target and pat ourselves on the back that we hit our target.
Yeah.
But like I would feel more comfortable if we kept the target the same as what it was, but just our actual is higher, because that's the reality. And I feel like it speaks more. And this is I don't know if this is a board discussion or a you discussion, but I feel like it better portrays the reality we're in.
I think it's disingenuous, right? I think we need to have frank conversations and be transparent. that we cannot sustain 15. We cannot sustain 17. And putting the target at 20, again, a target is, that's where I'm aiming. And sometimes I'm to the left of it, and sometimes I'm to the right of that. And throughout the year, we all do a lot of explaining to that, right? And I think it is semantical, and it is a Fairport thing.
Yeah, so I guess I'm just gonna push back a little bit. Is that, if we're changing what our target is though, should that be a bigger like board discussion? Like I know we've discussed like for this year, but like if that's gonna be our forever change.
So sustainability is important too, right? And
Right, I'm
making sure that we
like,
can.
so is that a board decision or is that like a?
Well, my responsibility is to provide a budget to the board, and the board adopts it. The board has expectations that there's NASA hunch, that there's electives, that we have multiple programs. We offer German. So the superintendent's job then is to provide a budget that can make it all work, right? And we cannot create a sustainable budget with class sizes at 15.
So
Oh, I'm not
I
asking
would
for
say-
15, yeah.
So our role would be the contractual limits. When we approve the contract, we set that parameter. And then we set the expectation through our budget goals of what we want that to look like. But then Brett lives creating the targets. In my opinion, that would be under the superintendent purview. We set the contractual, we set our expectations for how the budget is lived.
Yeah. I feel like that's my mistake. And I felt like in the past, they said that the school board is part of that conversation with like the targets aspect.
Well, the board is always, for all the right reasons too, have been a part of that discussion, and I've been able to deliver that for many years. And as we move through the years, it's been more challenging to achieve that based upon all the variables that we've been talking about.
And I don't think anybody loves having to increase class sizes. I mean, I don't like it either.
Oh yeah, and I think we know
it's right.
necessary. It's like the actual versus what our target
right.
is. Yeah.
And I guess I would want to look back and see what we had last year on here because, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that this is that much different.
It was 18 for the target. I mean, he put it up there.
Yeah, I know. So, but I just think trying to be as clear as possible this year is important because I think there often is confusion where people get used to having it, I had 14 kids, which is probably amazing, but sustainability, that's not going to be a reality for people. So I think we all have heavy hearts with increasing class sizes, but unfortunately, we have to be transparent and,
If I can throw sorry, Rich, just a very quick semantic thing, just kind of off Lisa's thing. When we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about budgetarily sustainable, not environmentally. Not when we talk about the sustainability committee, we're talking about can we make this last year to year financially? So, sorry, that was about that.
Yeah, and I don't look at a moving target as patting ourselves on the back. I think you sometimes change targets when you have to balance and you're kind of facing reality. And sure, we could keep going for that other target, but I think we understand that we're not willing to kind of look at the other things that we would need to do in order to be able to achieve that, right? We've done that through our workshops, through our discussions, and so I think you sometimes adjust a target when you're facing a reality and you realize that on balance, this is going to give, almost a utilitarian, like this is going to give us most of what we want by doing this versus what we would lose if we kept to the current target. Does that?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Brian.
No, I would say that I think this is part of a board discussion on that expectation. Like we set the contractual limit, and that's part of that. And I think that this is a larger discussion. Like this year is like almost looking at it for me. This year is this year, and we got to get through this year. And then maybe a larger board discussion when we start doing budget goals next year is what do we want this to look like going forward in terms of making it sustainable. All of these issues that we're bringing up, I think that this is a good board discussion in terms of budget goals. That's where I would place it as a. We have our contractual limits that we negotiate, and we live within those, but also getting with the target expectation. Maybe that's a better way of putting it, just semantically to kind of.
Yeah, I agree with you. Semantically, it does become uncomfortable after a while because sometimes it's hard to achieve it. And
but with that, I mean, I think your point though is we shouldn't lose sight of where we started, right?
Yeah, I think that the full transparency is we really didn't want to change it, but the reality of the situation is we do.
Yes.
And so I feel like when we keep the target, what we really actually want, it's more transparent than just moving. So or at least better conveys where I am, and we all know that I'm the big, let's talk about class size person. So, but that doesn't necessarily, my viewpoint doesn't have to be reflected in that. I just wanted to go ahead and bring that up in the public conversation of in my mind, what the reality of the situation is, that we all wanted it to be lower, but we can't. And when we change that wording, it makes it look like we decided that that's not what we wanted anymore.
So I've been doing it a lot of.
Sorry, Brett, can we? I agree. I understand what you're saying. I'm sending a kid to kindergarten next year. I think the tricky part about this is, then what do we set as our aspirational? Do you know what I mean? Because I would love a kindergartner to be in a class of 14, and that could be our aspirational, and then our actual is living at 20. And it feels like if we keep that mix and that gray area of what our hopes are, rather than what our teachers are going to have to live in, it creates that kind of disingenuous, kind of that conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want anyone to go through this budget season like we're going through, and to feel like we weren't as upfront and blunt. Honestly,
maybe that's my mourning process
No,
too.
I
I'd
know,
already
I
accepted that we
know.
were going to have to increase class sizes, but I wasn't ready for it to say that that was our target. That feels like giving up for the future. But we need to keep moving, and that's
But I
fine.
agree. I agree with the sentiment of what you're sharing, and I was going to say what you're going to say, but probably not as well, right? Because again, doing this for so many years, you never really strike it, and it does become this semantical conversation. And I appreciate having this public conversation.
I think having it in public,
to see how we're struggling with it, because it is.
Sure, and I would say there are other cases where we might have additional staff in rooms if there is a need, right? So our English language learners could have an additional person in there, maybe if it's special education needs within the classroom. So I keep thinking that as well, where if we need additional support, it would be there.
So as we move through the budget
Yeah.
season and we talk about enrollments and class sizes, you're not going to just be seeing it, in one area. It's going to be a K-12 conversation, how it's impacting us. So.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I was going to say, any other questions?
To be blunt as well, that 3.7, I'll be honest, I lose sleep over this. Are we feeling like, with the levers and things and conversations to still do and the work to still do before April 7th, that we're going to get there? Or are we feeling like on the table we need to have that supermajority vote to get us through this really rough time?
This is an I believe statement. I believe there's more work that we need to do internally before we can go to the community to say, please give us a supermajority. So I think we have work to do.
I really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, I appreciate the question.
Thank you.
I know. Okay. So I think we started our meeting a little earlier today, and I'm not sure if everybody got the message. So we are going to make a motion to adjourn. Amend. Oh my gosh. I'm really focused on, to amend the agenda to move our public comment down. Second, Brian, Lisa, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so just give me a second to go back up to public comments. Sarah, are you good? Thanks. We're not leaving.
We did not.
No. Okay, so I thank you for pulling that up. Just a reminder, when folks are doing public comments, to be respectful, no shouting. Also remember that you can't name specific people, staff members, students, and you will have 3 minutes to share your information with the board. I will read the name of the person who is on to come up to talk to us, and we will have a timer. We will give you a 30-second warning when your time is almost up. I just want to do a reminder that when people come to do public comment, and this is everybody, unfortunately, the board doesn't like go back and forth with the discussion. This is the business meeting, and we do our business in public. And when people come to do public comments, they share their information with us. And then if you have like specific things, you can email or call, and we can respond back to the public commenters through email or a phone call. So don't feel weird. Weird, because we just have to listen, take it in, and then we get back to people if they want to after our meeting. So not trying to be strange. Okay, so today we have one person, Lynn Cock. You can come on up. Yeah, no, you're fine. And yeah, and don't be nervous or. So if you look on.
Is there
Is the green light on?
Yep, so if you press it. Yep, and whenever you're ready, we'll start. So whatever you need to do.
Okay. So good evening to the board, the superintendent, and the administrators. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. It's my first time doing this. So I want to begin by saying how much I appreciate how quickly the district communicates with families when something significant occurs at the high school. The superintendent letters show transparency, and I recognize that the last several months have presented complex challenges for our schools. That said, I'm here as a parent who is increasingly concerned, not about any single incident, but about the cumulative impact of recent events on our students' mental and emotional well-being. In a relatively short period of time, our students have experienced highly charged situations tied to local and global issues, intense public scrutiny, and even the presence of outside persons on school grounds. Some of these moments may have begun with good intentions or student expression, but they have escalated in ways that expose children to hostility, fear, and stress that many of them are not equipped to process on their own. My questions tonight are not about blame or politics. They're about support, preparation, and prevention. So first, I would like to understand the district's comprehensive approach to supporting students during times like these. While guidance counselors are an important resource, they cannot be the only answer. So I'm asking, and it might already exist, how are we monitoring broader trends, such as increases in conflict, anxiety, or isolation, so that students who don't actively ask for help aren't missed? Second, I'm interested in how our teachers and staff are being trained to handle difficult conversations when they inevitably arise in the classroom. When current events spill into school hallways, are educators given guidance on how to slow conversations down, de-escalate tension, and create space for respectful dialogue without turning classrooms into battlegrounds? And finally, and perhaps most importantly, this is a sticking point for me, I want to ask about how we are intentionally teaching our students when it comes to discourse. Do our students know how to listen to one another, even when they disagree? Are they being taught how to absorb information that they may find uncomfortable, consider another perspective, and still walk away knowing that disagreement is acceptable and does not make someone an enemy? This does not need to be about politics. These are life skills. The ability to have a thoughtful, respectful conversation in moments of tension is essential, not just for school, but for life. I'm asking not just how we respond when when something happens, but how we are preparing our students and teachers before it happens, so our schools remain safe, supportive places to learn. My hope is that the district can share how it's approaching these challenges in a coordinated way, supporting mental health, preparing educators, and helping students learn how to navigate a complex world with empathy, resilience, and respect. Do I go now?
Yeah, no, thank you, Lynn. Yep.
If you'd like to share that in an email to me, I would appreciate that, and I can reach back out to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for coming. Yep, thanks for coming. Okay.
I'm gonna step out for a band concert. In the auditorium, and I'll be right back. That's just a couple numbers.
Enjoy. Yeah. Okay, so we're up to our board discussion action items, and we are at the consolidation corner.
Consolidation corner.
But I need a
Brotherhood Sisterhood has a theme song.
I
I feel
know.
like Consolidation Corner could benefit.
It's a very catchy tune.
It was.
So, we are steeped in Pillar 4. And Pillar 4 is staff analysis and impacts of staff with consolidation. And the board has been getting reports on that periodically. Mr. Clark's going to talk about some things relative to, I think it's our students and scheduling and electives.
Yeah, I was grateful. I was trying to figure out what was harder to follow, the budget presentation or the night that we honor the board and the kindergartners are here. It's kind of neck and neck for me right now. So just jumping in, I've been talking to you about the master schedule process earlier in the, as you were working through, prep for the meeting and stuff like that. I'm working on a master schedule right now. So I think I shared with you, students had signed up for courses. In terms of the master schedule process right now, teachers, we solicit input from the teachers to lead teachers to understand what they want to teach, and that includes core courses, level courses, as well as elective courses within the department. They submit that back to me, and I start to build that process out. Some particular things that are different this year are kind of related to the time shift. I think I maybe mentioned in a couple of months prior, we have certain rules we follow. For example, I always run AP Physics C 9th period. Those rules are changing a little bit because of the time shift and because of our efforts to support music K-12. So our ensembles have typically run in the morning, and that's why we run AP Physics C in the afternoon, because our high-flying music kids also take high-flying science classes. See you guys. So some of the things that are shifting this year that I'm focused on are moving, the ensembles have been moved into the middle of the day under Krista Rodine's guidance and Patricia McGrath. They've worked on putting together a draft music schedule. We had to lock down our BOCES schedule to understand when our students with disabilities and our students that participate in CTE courses, that kind of thing, when they're out of the building. And that locks in my special education classes, so my co-taughts in my special classes. I'm waiting on that component from Lindsay and Patricia. They're working on that right now. But I have finished about 50% of the master schedule build. I've done all of the elective areas in the last 2 weeks or so. So art, business, world language, technology, that's where that started because they're not impacted by a lot of the special education classes. A few, but not a lot. So that's where we are in that process. That's in this time frame. And the next couple of weeks, I hope to get the special education component. That's actually the first thing that goes into the master schedule build. I build everything around our special education classes so that nothing, everybody gets what they need. And the next component is most complex is actually our science classes because they're tied to labs. And so that is the next thing that prioritize-wise into school tool. So my hope is that in our next report in April, I'll be able to say that I've run the schedule and it comes out 95%. That's usually my target. And that's what we've hit in the last 3 or 4 years. Knowing that we're adding in all the 9th grade, if I could hit that, I would be extremely excited.
And the lead teachers part in this.
Yeah, so as I said, the lead teachers have just submitted all of their selections. For example, Don Young's in the back. Hopefully he had a conversation with J.J. Wagner and Kevin Laley to say what he was interested in teaching. And again, there's been a little bit of shifting in that. I think I mentioned in our last meeting that, we have some anomalies. Like there are too many kids in a sense that signed up for leadership. So Kevin Sachs has to add a section of that. He can't teach the AP Humanities, so we're tapping people. And so some of our staff coming up from Minerva Deland hopefully have opportunities to take on different courses. And so I'm sending more people. This is like everything has an implication. I've already signed up 4 people for AP training for the summer.
Oh, that's great.
That hadn't had it before. And so we have to keep that pipeline of staff that are going to be teaching those courses. And sometimes backfilling retirements. Teachers that have taught those courses for a long time and aren't doing that. That's actually going on right now. So that's the master schedule process. And next step would be, I know this is really important for our consolidation, is room usage. And so over, in the last faculty meeting, we gave some time for them to focus on not only the selection of the courses, but also who's going to be sharing rooms. That's not settled business yet. We'll need to, as I put them in, then we have to figure out what fits and what doesn't fit. For example, we're navigating when the art department has usage of Tech 2, which is the area that we designed for in the STEAM part, you know, the art part of the STEAM, and how that balances out with some of the technology courses. And so there's plenty of space, but I have to navigate when the classes are going to run so that they're not in conflict. So I'm working through that with John Bryan as the lead art teacher and Josh Dietzik in the technology department to make sure that that space is outfitted and ready to go. So that's the master schedule component. I'm not going to talk too much about BroSys because you were there and you got to see it. I just wanted to share some anecdotal stuff. When we were standing in the gym before everything started, a few of the teachers walked by that had been here a long time. Christian Big was one of them, one of our exceptional science teachers. And Christian just took the opportunity to stop at the podium and tell me, he's like, this feels like it did 15 years ago. And so I took that as a really positive sign as we just got started, that having the ninth graders in the building made people feel better, not intimidated by the size of it. Having kids on the ground, the intimacy that Rich was, you know, there were 2,000 people in the gym, and it was an intimate conversation with the students and with Rich sharing the context of BroSys.
You could hear a pin drop.
You could, and that's always been my takeaway from the family talk. It helps frame the week and why we do this, why it's important. And then the other piece I wanted to share is Michael Panero is here today as someone that graduated last year. And Michael didn't make hay about the fact that he's at Harvard, but I'm kind of proud of him. So Michael just referenced college, you know. And one of the things that he shared in the panel conversation throughout the 512 presentations today was that he's obviously met people from all over the world at Harvard. And everyone that he talks to about his experience, like he just assumed growing up and living Fairport that that's what most people's experience in public high school was like. And he shared with the kids, like his perception is just that that's not the case. Not one person that he's met has been able to talk about something like this that we do that's intentional. And Rich made a great point about saying that we're not really different than anybody else in the sense that we have our problems. Everybody has their stuff. He emphasized that in the panel conversation today. But we have an intentional focus on talking about that stuff and trying to make it better. And again, Michael was really, really clear about that. As many great people as he's met, he's super proud to be where he is and where he's from. And he was hoping to impart to our kids, I hope you don't have to leave and be away from your home for 6 to 9 months to understand what it is that you're experiencing. And I think a lot of our kids, you know, I say this in graduation speech every year, you know, you're going to go away, but please come back. Because I think it takes some people different amount of time to get that perspective that you are in a special place because there is this commitment to what we do. So that was the cool part of BroSys that I wanted to share. Brett said that we're all over Pillar 4. I've had roughly 30 meetings or so with Doug in the last 2 or 3 weeks, Tanya, Brett, Jeremy, all of us around. And then by extension, the next piece of it in the plan really went through Pillar 4 to make sure that we were hitting all aspects of that. Is the next piece of that is communication plan. So we have meetings set up with all of our department heads, union leaders, et cetera, to make sure that we continue to communicate through this process. And so that was the focus on pillars. And then the last piece Brett asked for a very brief update on, because I know that Patricia had talked about this before, was the extracurricular clubs, just worthy of like reiterating some of the things that people were concerned about coming into this. And so the plan is to roll over all clubs. Right now, I checked in with Maddie this morning. Maddie said that she's already put out, Maddie Powers in charge of clubs through the White House. One of the things that she does in the spring is to ask who intends to come back. And she's already hearing from some staff that they are not. And it might be because, again, they're retiring. And there'll be an opportunity for somebody else to pick up the mantle. But it also kind of informs our normal process for running extracurricular clubs. There's a bit of a turnover in the advisorships. Sometimes there's a turnover in the interest. You know, some years we'll have 6 kids sign up for Games Club and it just doesn't have enough to run. We're in that process already. This is when she sends out that interest form to find out who's going to keep moving forward. And with our work with the FEA, the plan is to move everything forward. But in the fall, every September, we have an extracurricular fair and we have signups and we will run the process the way we always do. So there might be some clubs that don't run, but they won't run because they don't have interest, not because they haven't been planned for. Now, there is some anomalies to that, some specific intentional conversations we had about, for example, the yearbook advisors coming up from Minerva Land, merging with the yearbook advisors here. It's a gargantuan job, so that's good business for everyone. And then some intentional focus around the arts and making sure that we have, I hate to use the word JV, but we have that musical focus set aside for our grade 9, 10 kids. That's still going to continue to take focus, and I think that that's going to take the planning with around the drama club to understand like what the production is going to be, and they try to get shows that are going to have as many kids as possible. But I think there's just more information to come on that. But our focus is to have 2 musicals instead of just the one that we just finished, for example, and then navigate how we take advantage of having the facility at Minerva Land, but the performance is here at Fairport High School where they're students. So taking advantage of everything that we have and making sure that we have more opportunities for kids. So that would be the anomaly on that. And then the other piece that I know people are concerned about is, are we going to run clubs before school or after school? And we've been hedging only while we gave John an opportunity to work out the transportation component of things. And John's confident that he can run buses, early buses before school and late buses after school. And what Brett and I have talked about with our teacher leaders is having that answer come from students. They might say that majority of the kids can meet after school, then that's when the meeting is going to be. If the majority of the kids can meet before school, that's when the meeting will be. Much the same way as things take place now. Honestly, there's more focus on it because of the time shift, and so I think that opens the door for people to understand that they're going to get in, talk to their kids, figure out what's best for everybody, and then set their meetings. Right, and then I think that's it.
Well, just to continue.
Yeah.
It was really powerful bringing the 9th graders over. They sort of had like a precursor orientation. I know Deb Miles was walking around too, who's back there. What was the tenor of that, and how many kids from Fairport High School participated to all the 400 kids?
Yeah, huge kudos to really Steph and her counseling background. She's so good at organizing these things and making sure that we connect. And so Steph tapped the same students that helped out in the experience that we did for 8th graders. She asked if they'd be interested in helping out. She added a few more. I think she ended up with about 68 kids, upperclassmen that helped out with the panel conversation. She had 16 classrooms again. And I'm sure some kids didn't take much in, in the morning. But I think by and large, the sentiment was that they enjoyed the opportunity to be in a classroom in Fairport High School and kind of see themselves here. And for some of our performers, that are already here for, concerts, et cetera, some of our student athletes that are here already, it's probably less of a big deal to them than some of the other kids who have never stepped foot in Fairport High School. But I thought the nice part was they were all around the building.
Yeah.
They weren't like in a hallway. And so they really got to experience being all throughout the area. And it didn't, you were here for the conversation. It wasn't a blip in our day. Like they just moved into classrooms and had their experience and then moved on. And it's kind of like my takeaway from the consolidation. Mid-September, the bell's going to ring, kids are going to go to class inside those classrooms where all the magic takes place. You're only going to feel it for 2-3 minutes at a time, that there's a lot of people in the place. I've always felt that way here, just being here for 12 years. I never feel the size unless it's the family talk. You felt the size there. Homecoming, you can't help but be around the hill and not say, like, we've got a lot of people here, But if you live in it every day, I don't think that that's going to be the case, and it's not going to change what our amazing teachers do in the classroom. So, and I thought that was a good example. Like, all those kids were in the building all at the same time. The bell rang, and then they left, and it was all good.
Great exercise. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Pillar 2 has been on our minds this past month as well. That's the school start and end times. There's a UPK time change fact sheet that's in development that will be shared with families, principals from K-8 will be here next month talking a little bit about everything we want to know about UPK and the time change, the fact sheet. YMCA Elementary School Aftercare is underway. The registration is for families will be on March 27th, right around the corner. So we'll be able to get a good sense of how many people will be coming. And registration for new families to the Wrap Care will be on April 13th. Wrap Care section, again, is now live on the Time Change website, which we continually put out in consolidation corners. And there's going to be all this information on the 8 Go 9, 9 Go 10 newsletters that Principal Grow has been working to share out with the community, along with Lindsay Reddick, and developing Keeping Time newsletters. That's a new edition of just keeping what's the latest and greatest relative to communicating these priorities that are just around the corner here in Fairport.
Yeah, but I think having it so much earlier than past years has been really helpful. The information and the
Good.
dates.
Good. Yep.
I just really love a good pun.
Yeah, I know. That's Lindsay's wizard. Thank you.
Okay. We're good? Okay. I need a motion to approve the form of the notice of annual meeting, budget vote, and election, and substantially the form attached hereto, and authorizes the district clerk to publish and post such notice in the manner provided by law. Brian?
Second.
Mary Caitlin? Discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. 7, 0, 6. No, I can't see Sarah. Okay, yeah. Okay, next up, be it resolved that the following proposition be submitted to voters of the district at the meeting to be held on May 19th, 2026 as attached. And it is there in the content.
So moved.
Mary Caitlin?
Second.
Jan? Any discussion? I think it was part of the presentation just now, so you can go back and look. All in favor? Aye. 6-0. Exciting stuff here. Motion to adopt the resolution for a proposed capital outlay project at Jefferson Avenue Elementary School pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act as attached. Brian? Nicole? All in favor? Aye. 6-0. Need a motion that the board approves the attached field trip request.
So moved.
Mary Caitlin, Brian, all in favor? Aye. 6-0. Policy, yay. Motion that the Board of Education approve the first reading of the policies listed below. Brian? Nicole? Any discussion? Comments?
No real big changes, some language changes that were updated from BOCES information and just continuing on through our cycle.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. 6-0. Motion that the Board of Education approve the second reading of the policies listed below. Brian?
Second.
Mary Caitlin? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6-0. Athletic fundraisers. Motion that the Board of Education approve the 2026 spring athletic fundraisers as attached.
So moved.
Rich? Nicole? All in favor? Aye. 6-0. Donations, always wonderful. Motion that the Board of Education approves the following donation for the Fairport Music Department. Brian? Rich? Thank you for the donation of a trumpet. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. They are. Motion that the Board of Education approves the addition of 2 clubs at Martha Brown as attached.
Second.
Did you get that, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. 6-0. Which brings us to instructional. Motion to approve the following instructional staff actions as recommended by the Superintendent of Schools.
So moved.
Second.
Rich, Jan. There are some retirements in here. I know that we will be celebrating folks closer to the end of the year who are retiring.
They got their notice in this month.
All in favor? Aye. 6-0. Okay. Need a motion to approve the following non-instructional and civil service staff actions as recommended by the superintendent of schools.
So moved.
Mary Caitlin. Nicole. All in favor? Aye. 6-0. Motion that to approve the following athletic staff actions is recommended by the superintendent of schools. Brian.
Second.
Jan. All in favor? Aye. 6-0. Motion that the Board of Education approve the attached personnel agreement as recommended by the superintendent of schools. Brian.
Second.
Jan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6-0. Which leads us to our consent calendar. And I need a motion to approve the consent calendar. Nicole? Brian? All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. And I need a motion to enter into executive session for matters pertaining to the information listed below. Brian? Rich? All in favor? Aye. If you're listening from home, we will reconvene only to adjourn. So we will not be back having exciting conversation later this evening. So thanks for listening, and you're out.